What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Black and Gold. This is HiBruiNation interview edition. Today, Vogel and I are joined by a very special guest. Bruins fans, you guys know him from NESN intermission segments, from Bruins pre and post game. But he is also an analyst for NHL Network and the host of the Morning Brew podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in Mr. Billy Jaffe. Billy, thanks for joining us, man. How are you doing?
That would be the closest to ever get like a boxing introduction. Holy shit, that was great. Thank you very much. You're like, Michael Buffer. Thank you. No, it's good to be here, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Oh man, that's high praise. I gotta tell you, I'm not a big boxing guy. Like, I know a lot of people that are, like my neighbor, his children, and a couple of my other friends are, but that's not my stick. But we're also here, to talk about some hockey too on top of it. Hopefully maybe I can, enable some cool, I don't know, verbiage. See, I'm getting the jitters out. It is what it is.
Absolutely. Let's talk hockey. Whatever you want to talk about. You want to talk about last night's game as we sit and record this on Sunday morning, or where do you want to go?
Yeah, so I mean, the fans know a lot about you from a perspective as a NESN analyst, but we also wanted to get to know a little bit more about you personally. But speaking of last night,
short pod.
Yeah. We know last night was probably a late night for you with the Utah game being at 9 p.m. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was a lost opportunity to win 2 points, to earn 2 points. Way too sloppy. Way too too many hope plays, too many less valuing of the puck, as Brick likes to say, and it's a statement that I've always liked that he said, and we didn't feel that they had a golden opportunity with a depleted defense of the Utah Hockey Club, and they never allowed them really, except for a couple of shifts, to feel uncomfortable. And they gave them a lot of opportunities vis-a-vis soft plays in their own zone with the puck. And therefore, it led to opportunities for them. They were up 1-0 in the third. Utah scores a goal. Actually could have had another one, but it was offside, off of a turnover. Anyway, they lose in overtime. Good news, bad news. Good news is they got a point. Bad news is they should have had 2. I mean, they should have, and you hope you don't look back at that as one of those early season, you should have had the extra point, and that gets you to a different spot in the playoff race.
Now, you mentioned a lot of the turnovers too. What about the fact that the Bruins played a little bit of sloppiness? That was also kind of emulated in the Colorado game, at least later stage as well. It seemed like maybe the road trip might have gotten to them a little bit. But
I can tell. Let me just say that about Colorado. Colorado's pretty. Listen, I know they're struggling too, Cam, but you give those guys, the McKinnons, the McCarrs, whatever, they're freaking good. And I thought that the Bruins. I mean, look, you go out there, you only have a day, you play the game. I think you're a little tired in the third, but there's always going to be pushback from a good team in the NHL. There's always going to be, and it's how do you manage it, right? So I thought that they managed it pretty well. We didn't love the Rantanen goal, meaning the one that Korpisalo gave up, the one through him, but it was still Rantanen, and it was still a heavy shot. So overall, I thought 5-on-5 in Colorado, that they were really good. I did. I thought that they took advantage of a team, right, that is hurting on the back end. They did that. They couldn't do it again in Utah. And I don't know. It just seemed to me more of a mindset thing than the road trip thing, at least in my head.
You mentioned the Colorado, obviously a very fast-paced, hard playing team, right? That power play, and you mentioned that they didn't let up a 5-on-5 play. And I would say 5-on-5, they actually were a very dominant team too. But that power play, I mean, a ton of credit, right? Like, they moved that puck so well, so quick. Like, I found it hard to blame Korpisalo almost on anything because of the way they were able to move it.
They are very good at it, and they don't waste time, and they've got hammer time coming from Cale Makar. I mean, that shot that he scored on was really, heavy duty, and there were guys in front. It was everything you want out of a power play quarterback right there, right? It was a vicious shot. So the Rantanen one, Korpisalo was there. He had gotten over to the left. It just ended up going through him. And so, yes, that's going to happen, right? But you sit there and say, oh man, that's the one. If there was one that he would say the goalie cliche he'd like to have again or have back, I think that would be the one. I think that would be the one right there, because it went through him instead of by him.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. And kind of pivoting back to the Utah game, I definitely agree with you. That was a missed opportunity. Being down Sean Dursey and John Marino, those
Mhm.
those were big guys for them, right? And so their defense, I wouldn't say was bad last night at all. They actually the defense was the one that scored the 2 goals for Utah. And I think, yeah, the Bruins, I agree with you. I don't think they attacked it, as they should have.
Couple of times the Castellic line did it again. They've been so consistently good at doing that. Straight line hockey, puck placement hockey, puck support hockey. At times the Bruins did some good things. I'm kind of blanking on here and there, but I did the game. I just felt that as the game went on, the turnovers became more egregious and more regular, and that just it's funny. You could have 2 or 3 great shifts, but then one turnover leads to a complete discombobulation. That's what it does. And then if you can't stop it, if you can't stem it right away, and another time it happens, and another time it happens, it just becomes problematic. And I don't remember the exact number of giveaways in the game, but it was significant. It was significant for the Bruins, 20 something. It's just too many. And some of the big guys still aren't coming through. That's the other thing. So, again, I can always talk about the game at hand for a long time and break it down to the minutia of it. And it came down to puck management. And I feel like some of the top guys have not gotten going yet for this team.
For puck management, because so HiBruiNation records once a week, and so we kind of do a recap of the previous week's game. So just to kind of launch it a little bit further back on last Monday's game to the Florida Panthers, I feel like that was another missed opportunity.
Yep.
For the Boston Bruins, a lot of self-inflicted pain, and a lot of it came from the turnovers. I mean, most notably the turnover from Matt Patra at the blue line during the power play that led to the Sam Reinhart shorthanded goal. That to me was painful to watch, just a little bit painful to watch, because the guy's talented, but he just gave up the puck to an equally, if not more talented player. So do you think the turnovers
a veteran player, a stronger player, a player that's feasting on that? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've seen breakdowns with this team an awful lot in the D zone, but we've also seen, we just saw it last night. Again, the goal was overturned when Marchand turned the puck over, and it led to the goal for Yamamoto that, again, was offside, but the Bruins were lucky. The Patra turnover. I mean, you want to go back to the Florida game, the one at home, the second matinee in a row at home. Florida just plays their game against the Bruins, and the Bruins are still trying to figure out how to play Florida regularly. They did it pretty well at a few games in the playoffs over, the series, and they would have their really good moments, but Florida's able to find their game, cliche 101, a lot more, and they can identify their game and what they're all about, and then the Bruins are reactive instead of proactive against them. That's what it's been lately. And so that means that the Bruins are, whether it's chasing the game or they don't have, I think, everybody's been asked, Swayman was asked, other guys, are they in your head? I don't know if a player will ever admit that, but I can't sit here and say they're completely in their head. What I can sit here and tell you is Florida absolutely plays their game, their style, very effectively, very efficiently compared to the Bruins when they play so far, these 2 games this season. They just do.
Yeah, especially
it definitely looked like the 2 games this year, Boston was focused less on trying to beat them and were more of beating up on them. If that's just still being angry at the playoffs last year or what.
Yeah. But trying to.
But Florida knows how to get under the skin.
Yeah, well, they're the champs, and they're the team. They're high above right now, right? They're above, and so. And by the way, you see this at every level. There's always a top dog, and there's a few of them. There are a few of them every year in the NHL. When I mean a few top, I mean those teams that are at the top that everybody's gunning for, that everybody's trying to use as a benchmark, that everybody probably is trying to emulate too. A bit the way, but teams are having a hard time emulating what Florida does. Now, it can be a tough way to play during the regular season, as physical and as aggressive as they are. But against the Bruins, they're like, no, we're going to do it. we're going to do it. We're going to stick to that. And the Bruins are saying, okay, we got to match that. And the Bruins, I don't know if they can just yet. They hope they can by the end of the season. And I think that's some of the reason for the changes in their lineups, the physical changes, the additions, etc. let's hope that they can get there. That would be nice.
Yeah, I think that game was another missed opportunity just because of they were out. They being Florida, they were out
Barkov and Tkachuk.
Yeah, two of their prolific scorers, best players. I'd say. I mean, they still had the Sam Reinharts, the Bennetts, Carter Verhaeghe, and everybody. But I feel like Barkov and Tkachuk are massive cornerstones to that team. So I feel like they shot themselves in the foot in a way.
Yeah.
So based on the first 6 games, what do you think that the Bruins kind of need to improve upon going forward?
Well, they definitely need to get their team defense a little more stout. It's been here or there a little better, Montreal, they played well, but it's Montreal. The games outside of the Florida games, they've been better. They still could be better. We were trying to highlight or marking some plays last night earlier on in the game in our green room as we're watching it and on NESN, and better middle ice defense. And then later in the game, they kind of got away from that again. But the PK, it could, which has been such a stalwart for this team. The power play has been, I know they scored 2 against Colorado. Okay. They were both beautiful backdoor plays, right? Off rush. You don't normally see those. If you're going to talk about a traditional power play, the puck movement and some of the puck decisions definitely can be better. I think that will come. I hope. And then the obvious thing is, what do you do at the middle 6? And you could even make the not even argument, the discussion could be had of, do you tweak even like the top line too? Do you Pastrnak, they need him to get going. I guess he's got 4 goals so far, but you really need him to get going to the level of Pastanis, or that's even a term that we know he can bring, and the danger, like the fear factor when he comes on the ice every time. That's what you want to see and need. Do you shift Elias Lindholm and put him with Marchand, let's say? Do you mix that up? Do you put Patra? Do you try Patra with Pastrnak and Zacha? Do you know what I mean? Like but really the conundrum is the middle 6. What do you end up getting, especially the second line right wing? I think everybody knows that. But the second line right wing impacts the third line as well. So that's the biggest thing in my eyes, lineup wise.
You mentioned the second line right wing, and that was actually a question we had lined up for you too. So they're keeping Tyler Johnson in the wing, so he's still on his PTO. They haven't offered him an official contract. Do you foresee that being kind of like a Danton Heinen situation where they eventually get him to sign, and then maybe he becomes an impact player or slots in on that second line right wing or that third line spot? Because I 100% agree with you that whatever they decide for the second line is going to impact that third line tremendously. But what do you see?
I'm going to say I think, it feels just like Danton Heinen 2.0. There has to be some reason with the movement of the salary cap, the days, the this, the that. Do you just go on this road trip and then make some decisions based on the eye test, what you saw or didn't see for 2 or 3 guys? Do you take the chance of sending down a couple of guys to the American League? That's my guess. 1 or 2 guys got to clear. You've got to clear some more space for him. If you're going to sign him to between what it would be a league minimum $775 to a $1 million type of deal, is he the answer? Is he the elixir? I don't know if he's that, but I think he can help. I think he can help. Again, you're back to this classic decision of, do you sign a guy who you think can play, let's call regular third line? Of course he can slot in here, there, but let's say more or less third line. You still got a second line slot open on your right side, but you say, all right, he can help us in many, many ways. Center, right wing, power play, etc. Second line, third line, veteran, etc. All that. But now also looking forward, really forward, what does it do for you and your cap space come trade deadline time? Does you know what I mean? You're accruing dollars right now. If you then spend them and you have fewer dollars to spend come March 1st, whenever the deadline is, I don't remember this year, does that impact their thinking? So I guess that's probably going into it too. I talked to Tyler the other day. He seemed very okay and calm about it. I don't, quite honestly, I don't even know if he's on this road trip or not. Like, I don't think he is, but I don't know. Like, did he go I think we would have heard if he was skating there. So he's waiting. I mean, does he get another offer? I mean, that's going to play a lot into it. Maybe he just says, the other offers I've gotten are from a team or two I don't want to go to. I'll stick it out with Boston because they, I'm just speculating here, fellas, that Boston has said, hang in there. We want to figure this out, etc. We really appreciate it. And if that's the case, then he's going to wait. But I don't know how much longer he'd wait. I mean, you're getting to the point by next week where you're like, okay, for both player and team, you would think something would be getting done.
That's a good point too, because you mentioned that other teams can offer him, right? And then injuries can play a huge factor in that, because if another team is desperate for a winger or a center, I mean, if they see him in the wings, the guy has Stanley Cup pedigree. So, and for maybe a young team or a team that might be fighting to maybe go for a run, that might see that and they'll say, we'll take a run at you. Like, we'll try for it. Mm-hmm. Tangential kind of to him and with the second line right wing spot. So there's two very young and good prospects down in Providence, and Lysell and Merkulov. Lysell actually just scored his first goal of the season last year. Do you maybe think that they get elevated to the big club for a look? I know Merkulov actually had last year for a period of time, but Lysell has yet to kind of break that barrier. And I thought that they had a decent preseason. I thought they got better as they went along, but do you think that that's a possibility?
Absolutely. But I really am not educated enough to comment on how those two are playing right now because I haven't been able to watch them play. So I'm comfortably sitting on the fence on this one, Cam, because, I mean, I could sit here and say, oh, yeah, they got to bring him up. And that wouldn't be appropriate because I haven't been able to either watch online or go down to Providence to see him play and really see the details of the game and everything. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you they wanted both of them to go down there and kick ass down there and force them to call him up. That's what the NHL team wants you to do. And they want you to make it hard on them, really hard, like where they can't say no. Could I see them trying? I mean, why not? But the question becomes with regard to that is, are you just calling up to try, or are you calling up to try and keep up? And you want to keep those guys up if they get called up. You don't want them on the 95 Express regularly. Now, I know it's 50 minutes, depending on traffic, but it's just an optics thing, right? It's just a way of like saying, hey, no, you've earned it. No, we're going to bring it. I don't think they want to bring them up with the hope that they'll take it. I think they want to bring them up and say, you're here you got 8 games or whatever. They look at the schedule like, here's a good run of games. You know what? Play your ass off and take a spot. I think that's what they want out of it. So, I mean, if you guys have seen them play and you think they're worthy of a call up right now, you would know more than me, and I would actually defer to you on that. Because I always have a thing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you something I really don't know. And just to sound good.
I like how you said it's 50 minutes from Boston with, depending on traffic, even with like Boston is an hour away from Boston. Like, right. So it's crazy. And you're right. If they get called up in an emergency situation, that can play into a player's physicality, right?
Well, emergency situation is different versus we have a spot open, like, and you've earned the call up. To me, that's different. If you say, hey, we need you, you've been the best player down there, come on up. We got to, we need you right now. But, if you call them up to try and fill the spot, it can't be for one. I think it's got to be 4 games, 5 games, and you've got to live with the good and the bad, the bad, along with the good, if the growing pains. So that's another decision that needs to be made with it.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah. I know that we kind of touched on, how the fourth line has been your best line so far this year, and how, we have, Johnson, Lysell, all these either PTO guys or prospect guys. Are there any new guys to the team this year that have really stood out to you that have made an impression? Korpisalo obviously in net, but Kostelic, Jones, Lindholm. Any new guys stand out?
Well,
more than others.
The Kostelic and Kepke. I mean, Kepke's been the, really strong. I mean, Kostelic, at least we had known, seen, experienced. I guess his effort and attitude with Ottawa, albeit and weren't a great team. But you know what? You always knew that he was out there. And on a bad team, that can be even tougher, right? For a guy that plays his role. He doesn't deviate from his role. Cole Kepke gets an opportunity with Boston and decides to sign with them after parts of 2 years in Tampa's organization. And I think I can't imagine that. I mean, who else would be more surprising than Cole Kepke right now? Can it continue? Who the hell knows? But, you know, I mean, he keep playing the role. Keep doing exactly what you're doing, bud, because he's doing it with great determination, excellent stride, you know, really powerful, great couple of first steps. He's made a difference. So, I mean, to me, it's those two new guys that have jumped out at me. The others, in no particular order, that you mentioned: Jones, Tufte, Zadorov, Korpisalo, Lindholm. I mean, Elias, I kind of know what he is. So I've seen it, and I'm not surprised by it. For the most part, happy with it, right? Like he's not loud. His game isn't loud. It's quiet, regardless. So, you know, even if he puts up 2 goals, it's usually quiet, right? The players I mentioned have done okay. They've just done okay. They haven't done enough for me to say they've jumped out and they've done something.
Just one more question on the Bruins, and then we actually had some questions about you that we wanted to kind of get into. You know, through the first 6 games, who do you think the number one Bruin is that kind of needs to step it up, with all things kind of taken into consideration?
Oh, I already mentioned the name. You know, you want to you know that there's so much more from David Pastrnak. You know that when he finds his game, it's so special. But I also look at Charlie Coyle. He's been quiet in my eyes. I thought his Colorado game was good, very good. But otherwise, more from him. So I'm going to give you too many names to say one name. But look, the last couple of games, love to see more from Charlie McAvoy, because you know he's your number one. He is your absolute thoroughbred on the back, and he's like a Clydesdale too. And I mean that. I mean, I love Clydesdale. Like he can crush you. You know, he's a massive, but he can. He hits harder than anybody, but he can also skate beautifully. So you need your biggest guy like that. Not physically biggest, but you know, optically biggest. You need him going more. But again, I can go through all. Really, guys, I mentioned names, but you could go through all of the top end guys and say you need a lot more from the Marchands, the Zakas. You haven't gotten anything out of either Geeky or Brazeau. They're not part of that upper echelon, but one of those two guys, you hope, you need more from one of those two guys. You'd love both, but you need more from them. Trying to have perspective. It's very early in the season. There comes a point, though, where it isn't early anymore. The hockey game is worth 2 points October 5th, and the same thing about April 5th, right? The result. So, eventually you can't keep saying, oh, it's early. But I do look at other teams, i.e. Nashville. I look at Edmonton. I look at Colorado. And then on the other hand, I also look at teams like Calgary. And you're like, holy shit, look at Calgary playing. But, can they sustain it? Probably not. But I look at those other teams, and not that I'm comparing the Bruins to them, but I'm saying they're not the only team that's going through stuff. They are 1-0-1 on this road trip. It's going to be a tough game on Tuesday in Nashville. Now that Nashville's 0-5, I mean, They are going to, if that game isn't full of P&V, I don't know what is, right? I mean, that game is going to be, I'd imagine from both sides, incredibly early season intensity, right?
Yeah.
But if you find a way to get another win, then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, 2-0-1 on that 3-gamer, pretty good. Pretty good. So I'm trying to keep some perspective, but circling back to the original question, the top guy, all of the aforementioned top guys need to get better.
Yeah, Nashville, man, I'm surprised those acquisitions they made in the offseason, and they're 0-5 to start. I mean, that's crazy.
Slow start for them.
It just may be too many new guys, too much expectation right now. Can they, as I always, I coach young kids, and I've always said to them, if you're going to be sick, be really sick, get it out. Get it out of your system. Don't be kind of try not to keep it and let it linger. And it's 3 days. Just be sick. Get it out of your system. Maybe a bad game, or maybe the start for a couple of these teams like in Nashville is just getting sick, and then maybe they'll go on like last year, another 17-2 or whatever they went last year type of run, 18-game streak run.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton last year started out the season pretty rough, and they ended up going to the Cup final. So I mean that,
and they're the favorite this year, right? They're the favorite this year to win the Stanley Cup. If
even after the start they've had this year too. I mean,
right? People still think that they can, and all we know they might. All you got to remember too, and this is an awful memory for me. 2019, the St. Louis Blues were like the worst team in hockey come January 1st, and then they turned it around, and from the end of 18 into 2019. So trying to take some perspective and a chill pill. But it's hard. We live in a what have you done for me this moment world now. That's the biggest thing.
We have a common thing here in HiBruiNation. We just agree that 2019 as a whole year just never existed, never happened. We pretend that never existed. Thanks, Billy. We wanted to kind of shift things a little bit more towards you, because every Bruins fan knows you from NESN, and if they watch NHL Network, they see you on there every now and again. And obviously Boston Bruins pre and post game and the Morning Brew. I know I'm a frequent listener of that. But we're all curious, with your extensive work in the NHL and as an analyst and commentator, radio host, not just for the Bruins, but I believe you did work with the Blackhawks, the Thrashers, and the Islanders. What kind of sparked your passion in getting into hockey, and how do you think that kind of got you here?
Well, sparking my passion into hockey was when I was 2 years old, and I would take. You don't know what a milk crate is. You guys are way too young for it. Milk.
That's how we learned how to skate on the milk crates.
Well, I didn't learn how to skate on milk crate. I took the milk crate and I turned it upside down, and I sat on that right in front of TV and watched hockey, and I was mesmerized by it. This is what my parents tell me. I do kind of remember one time the whole milk crate thing, but it started when I was 2, and I just sat there and absolutely was completely ensconced, like couldn't watch it enough. And it was the Blackhawks in 19. So I'm going back to 1971, 72. All right, that's how long ago it was. Then I was 3 going on 4, and got out and started to skate a little bit. Okay, learned how to skate. And then at 4 years old, I was given a full set of equipment and go out and learn to play hockey at the time or whatever. And I cried my eyes out the first day on the ice, I'm told, because my ankles were hurting me because of the skate. And I went from like training skates to hockey skates. And I'm told, the story goes, that I was trying to get off the ice, and my father grabbed me. I don't think grabbed me is like he got me, by the shoulders, turned me around, and he said, with my mother behind him, no son of mine is going to quit his first time. And so he pushed me back out onto the ice, and that was it. And then I played the next year in what would be the house league. And I vividly recall, which is crazy. I remember I had 2 goals all year, and they both came in the same game. And one of them was a real goal, and the other one I spun around. We played those half ice thing with bumpers in the middle area, and I literally just got a puck and shot it down the ice, and the goalie missed it and went in. It's amazing how I can remember that. And if you asked me something my wife said to me 32 minutes ago, I wouldn't have an idea, right? I mean, I wouldn't have an idea whatsoever. But I remember that, and that was it. And then the next year, it was kind of like something happened. All of a sudden I could skate. I was big. I could play. And then ever since then, it just took off. And I wish I could play it more. I wish my body allowed me to. I'm trying to get back, because it's truly for an hour to an hour and 20 minutes. If you can get out there and just play with a great group of guys and, no bullshit and all that, it's very cathartic for me still. It is. It's in this effed up world that we live in. You know what, man? Like, to get out there and to have a moment, an hour to an hour and a half of really no issues in the world. It's pretty sweet.
Sometimes it's just therapy. Just getting back on the ice is the therapy you need.
Exactly. I mean, my hips literally need therapy. I've had both of them replaced in the last year and a half. I've had my neck fused and both shoulders done and everything. But that is what it is. But so the body's a mess. But on the other hand, you know what? If I can still do it and have a great time 1 or 2 days a week, I love it. So that's how I got started. That was my passion, starting with hockey. And by the way, coincidentally, I was always a Bruins fan, always, even though I grew up in Chicago. The reason being is my mother's family is from Boston. Grew up in Winthrop. Then my grandmother lived on Beacon Street, right in downtown Boston. When her husband died, she ended up moving in. My grandfather, she ended up moving into the city eventually, and so she loved Boston sports, all Boston sports. She was a hardcore, crazy sports fan, and so I was so, I loved her so much that, she impacted me. She didn't know it right away, but then it did. It was all I could get was Boston sports and the number one team, because for me with the Bruins, because my number one sport is hockey.
So to speak, this is also kind of like a dream come true in a way to work with the Bruins organization, being a Boston Bruins fan.
Yeah, I mean, back in 2011, after the Cup, when I got there, started doing their games, it was it was a dream come true, but I never really thought I'd be I had no idea I was going to be in broadcasting. I had no clue, right? I didn't fall into it until I was almost 29. And so for me, I mean, yes, to go to the Boston Bruins was unbelievable. I think even more, as cool as that was, my first 2 years with NESN and doing, I think I did 25 Bruins games those 2 years. I was traveling all around, and I would come in and I would do one game a week basically. But it was 2 years later when I agreed to a much more robust deal with NESN, and I moved my family to Boston, because I was still, like I said, living in the New York area coming in. I was doing a ton of NHL Network, a ton of Sportsnet in Canada and everything. But then I came in and I signed to do not every game, but a lot of games for the Bruins. And then that was kind of like that moment of, oh, you know what? I've always loved Boston. It's always been my favorite team. And now I'm living here. That's pretty cool.
Nice. Vogel.
Another question I wanted to ask. I know, you kind of started out your hockey, passion and career kind of the same as you have to learn to skate, learn to play hockey, the cross ice games. Most guys, at least guys, especially that we grew up with in this area, dream of playing college hockey or playing, potentially for a pro team or a Team USA. I know that you had the opportunity to play for college hockey in Michigan, and you actually were part of the 1997 Team USA during the Maccabiah games in Israel. And you were the captain of that team, brought that team to a silver medal. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, you coached the team in 2013 and 17.
Yeah, I've been involved with that numerous times. Had the opportunity, and it's wild. It's a wild place to go play hockey. But I mean, having the opportunity going back to Michigan, I finished my high school. Actually, I moved from Chicago to Connecticut to play at a prep school there at Kent School, and finished there, and then was recruited by a bunch of schools. And Michigan, being a Midwest kid, always had a very high place in my heart, so to speak. Or I mean, you grew up in Chicago. A lot of people first went to Michigan. A lot of people went to Big Ten schools in general, but just Michigan and the football helmets and everything. And it's hard not to be enamored with that. Or if you go to Michigan State or Notre Dame, you hate it, but you know what I mean? You just look at it, you see it, and you're exposed to it all the time. And they recruited me still when I was at Kent, even though all my other schools that recruited me were Northeast schools, and I considered a few of them. But I just ended up getting this opportunity at Michigan, went there, and, I mean, what a place. And while I wouldn't call it the most, extreme career by any stretch there, what a place for me to go to school, and the network of people and the friendships and everything. And hockey was fun. It was, and then it wasn't for me. I made a decision to stop playing there and then get into officiating, actually, at the time. I thought about transferring, but at the time, and when I say transferring, it was only for hockey. I absolutely loved the school. But then at the time, you had to sit out a full year. And at that time, I'm like, oh shit, do I want to sit out a full year? I didn't want to go to a small school, a D3 school. Nothing against them. I just didn't want to go to a much smaller school. Like, I loved Michigan, Ann Arbor, and the school and all. So I stayed there. You have that realization of, oh yeah, I wanted to play. Who doesn't want to play in the pros, right? I mean, I want to do, and then you have the realization, like, might not. I'm not going to, right? And there's a lot of great players out there. So anyway, I did other things, but I got my degree, and I have lifelong friends from there, and I have the connection to a lot of people. And I think that that's, incredibly important. And then getting the opportunity to play Anytime, I know it's cliche, guys, but anytime you can wear a sweater that says USA on it or Canada or whatever, it's very cool. And had an amazing time, have made some lifelong friends from that as well, especially the 97 experience. And, I mean, it's, again, I go back to, and it's any sport, hockey is obviously our sport, the three of our sports, we're sitting here and talking, but any sport, if you can use it to take you places, get you in places, to make you, as you said, like your therapy session, and if you can physically and mentally enjoy it, that's what it's all about. And so I feel like hockey has been great for me. I mean, it's just it's been not my life totally, but it's been a major. It's such a significant part of my life that when I think about it, it's pretty crazy.
How did you feel it was different from coaching the team for Team USA to actually playing? How you got to see it from both sides?
Yeah, well, and also in 17, I was Reg Dunlop for the old guys for the Masters team. I was player coach. I mean, coaching is so different, especially when you're coaching younger kids. When I say younger kids, the open team was 18 and up, right? We had some good college players on the team, some good junior players. So what you're doing for a short tournament, you're bringing everybody together. You have to be, you can't be, you have to have details, but not over detailed, because you're talking a couple of weeks. The most important thing about short tournaments are becoming a cohesive team immediately. That's the hardest thing and the most important thing. And, if you've got a full season, you can live with the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of stuff. As a coach on a short term thing, you've got to just really get through to the guys, and you got to say, look, you might do this here, but here I need you to do this, type of role. And that's always the biggest thing. And we ended up playing Team Canada in the gold medal game, and they had a guy who put up 50 something goals in the NHL last year on their team, and Zach Hyman, and his brother was playing at Michigan, and et cetera. And they were better than us. And so, I mean, I tried to devise a plan, if possible, to try and stop those guys. And we tried, and we did, and then we didn't. And then the next thing you know, I think we lost the goal. I think it was 6-2. So they were just better. And he had a hat trick, maybe even 7-2. And he was a bull out there, and he was, so I mean, he's doing it at the NHL level. So I don't really feel that bad about it. But that was the biggest difference, is how do you get the guys in a short-term scenario to buy in, to be a team, and to really accept roles that they might not do regularly. And as a player, my first time I was the captain of the team. I was helping this other guy. When I say helping him coach, meaning we talked a lot about X's and O's and everything. But as a player, you're trying to make sure that everybody is, especially as the captain, happy. Everybody feels good. Everybody understands that they're important. And that's not always possible. Sometimes you get people that aren't happy with their role because they're used to being this, as again, like I said, before they came there. But though, as the captain, you're trying to talk to everybody and make sure that they feel all for one.
Oh, wow. That's actually well said. Yeah. My neighbor's son has been trying to get me to coach his team for the past year. And I don't think I could. I haven't skated that skill. Like, I don't think I could. I just don't think I have the calmness. And then I actually go and watch some of these games, and then I just see some of the coaches throwing stuff on the ice. I said, okay, maybe never mind. Maybe I could.
Yeah, no, that's a safe sport violation. Yeah, you might not want to do that. That's hockey and safe sport, throwing shit, yelling, swearing. We have a good time. I've been very fortunate to be involved with my son's team for a long time now. I think it's either 8 or 9 years. I think it's 8 years. Oh. And with the Boston Junior Eagles. And we really had an amazing experience. But there have been times where it has been like, oop, I shouldn't say that. Or, whoa, very intense, probably too intense. And then every once in a while, you have to have some perspective and sit back and say, it matters, but it doesn't matter. Meaning, it is so important. We know it's important to the kids, and it's important to us too. But in the end, when it's all said and done, it's about an amazing experience, about giving them the opportunity that we had, and to take it up and take their hockey game and their life and their opportunities up to another level. Most of these kids, as good as they are that we're coaching right now, most won't play past high school. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. You recognize, again, from having gone through it, you understand how freaking good the guys are at all levels of college. club hockey right now is fantastic, fantastic compared to how it was when I was, back in the late 80s. And so it's hard to shit. So you just realize that this is really important from a growth perspective, and you want to win, and you want this, and you want that. In the end, though, it's all about experience. And that's when, then I reset, and then, I get mad again a few games later.
Vogel and I have talked about it, and we forgive Gary Bettman. Our invitation to the NHL draft probably got lost in the mail somewhere. So cool.
Yes,
no, that's awesome, Billy. Just one last question, and then we can wrap it up. And this one's going to be around the Bruins and your just overall thoughts. What do you think this? I know it's early yet, and you've alluded to it, and it's kind of hard because they can go on a tear. They could not. But what do you think the ceiling of this team is in terms of regular season and playoff ambitions?
Well, I mean, it's so incomplete that, I was high on this team from I think they're going to be a very competitive team that gets better as the year goes on. I'm still going to stick with that. I hope I'm right. Could be wrong. Yes, there's things that need to be fixed. We already are addressed. We already talked about those. But to get caught up in just the badness right now of a few things, again, it's too myopic, it's too narrow-sighted or short-sighted. So I don't know if they're going to reach the Holy Grail, the Stanley Cup, unless they address a couple of things, right? And the question is, will they be able to address them? I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball, nor do I. The salary cap plays a major role into it. They need a lot of different things to get going, but I do think I'll stick with this. I never thought they'd win the division this year. I've said that on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. I've said it on NESN. I said, but could they be as high as number 2 in the Atlantic? Maybe. Is a 2-3 spot really more 3 spot more realistic? Probably. Does that bother me? Not at all. You're going through Toronto or Florida. You know it regardless. So whenever you play them, you play them type of thing. Tampa looks good this year. Can they keep it up? No, I don't know. I mean, are they better without Stamkos and without Sergachev? It's hard to believe, right, guys? But right now they're playing with a focus and a purpose. Well, right now. But we're talking right now. So let's, do this again in 3 months, and holy shit, it could be a whole different thing. They could be a 500 team. So long way of getting back. And I have a way of, I wish I got paid by the word. I'd be retired. I still think they're a playoff team as they are constructed right now. But they need to get constructed they need to get higher performance level from certain guys, and they need to address 1 or 2 moves, no question about it, if they really want to go further than just playoffs. Nice.
Billy, we honestly can't thank you enough for coming on. This, for, as you can imagine, for just a couple of guys who love the sport of hockey and who are just doing this for fun as well. This has been a wonderful experience having you on. We know that you are involved with the Greater Boston Food Bank, and they aim to, help those who are less fortunate in the Greater Boston area. We at HiBruiNation and the entire Don't Puck with Media team fully actually stand behind these charitable efforts for local and broader communities. So as an additional thank you for you coming on with us today, the HiBruiNation team will be making a donation, and for our listeners, we hope and encourage you guys to do the same. So no, it's wonderful work. It's just a wonderful way to say thank you, and at the same time helping others that may need it.
No, I appreciate that. That's great. And just for all your fans too. I mean, that's awesome that you guys do that. So thank you very much. And obviously very important cause, not just Greater Boston, everywhere. If you can support even,
absolutely,
$50, like, we do it here locally where we live in the suburbs with our crew, our local charity as well. If only because, I think sometimes we think that everybody's being taken care of, and the reality is they're not, even locally, even in suburbs where you think, oh, we don't have that problem. You do, so I really appreciate that. Look, it's always fun talking hockey, and it's always good just catching up, and my schedule didn't allow it until now, so I appreciate you guys asking and having me on.
Cool. Thanks, Billy. Hey, good luck.
Thanks, Billy. Really appreciate it.
Yep, no problem, guys. Be well.
Take care.